Okay, right. I think this will be the last installment of LiveCoding MazeRunner. We've almost done everything I thought we should do. This doesn't mean it's the end of the game. I mean, there's so much more you can add to it, but I think this will be it for us at least. I mean, you're welcome to take it further on your own. So let's see. This is where we were last time. Everything is fine. I mean, it works well. Let's have a look. So I must admit the keys are still not exactly the way I want them. Yeah, they may not be as responsive as I'd like, but you can move around fast quickly. The player looks okay, but it's a little stiff. Well, it's not moving, that's why it's stiff. I'm not exactly, I mean, I know what it's supposed to be, and I'm not exactly sure it comes across that it's a person walking up and down, left and right. I don't like the walls, but I'm not going to change that. I like this icon set in general. But what I will do today is to animate the player. I'm going to find a better maze just to make things more exciting. And I will add jewels and doors to this game because I want those. So I've in fact already made a start at improving the keyboard responsiveness. So I copied this to a different file and made some changes, and I'm going to show you those changes now using a feature of Eclipse. So I'm going to highlight those two files. I'm going to right click and say, maybe I'll just scroll this up a little bit, hang on. I'm going to right click and say compare with each other from the menu, and then I get this view, which is the two files with changes highlighted. So I'll show you what I've done. So the changes are shown by these little lines between the two, the left and the right hand side, and you can see that lines that I've added are green, and any lines that are removed will, I think, be red, and things that are just the same, or lines that are almost the same, are highlighted like this. There's just the changes highlighted. On the right hand side you can also see all the changes in the file. So if I click on these, I go to the individual changes. But let's work through them one by one. So obviously I've changed the name of the class because it's a new class. Here I've added two variables, global variables. One is called direction and one is called step. So direction will select which of the sprites I use, because there are different sprites for the little player facing down, up, left and right. And step will be what step in the animation of that little player are we at. So for each of those four directions, there are four separate icons, in fact, so 16 in total, that have a different image of the walk cycle that the player is in. Right, so those two variables were added. I'm going to skip through that change for now. Let's look at this. So in addition to calculating a new X position, a new Y position, I also calculate a new direction for this player, because if we see that we're walking left, we should change the player's sprite, and if we then walk right, we should change it again. So we need to know which direction are we moving in. So that's what direction means, and also what new direction means. Okay, and for the four key presses, I just added new direction is 0 or 2 or 1 or 3. I looked at the sprites and checked which one is which direction. So it's one of those four numbers. Then I added this else return because if none of the keys are pressed, movement should not do anything. And it's a little difficult to code it in another way, so I just, at the end of all these else's, I just put an else return. I'll tell you why in a second. I'll show you why. Then I added this code. Before, we just checked if the new X and Y position is not a wall, we can actually move there, so update the player's position. PX becomes NX, PY becomes NY. But now, if it's not a wall, we move there, and then we also update our global direction variable with new dir, and we increment step. And we add 1 to it and mod by 8. So step will go, every time we move, step will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's cycling through those numbers. And that's how I get it to cycle through my animation sequence. Now, I said there were 4 animation sprites for each direction. So why isn't this mod 4? Why aren't we cycling 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3? Well, I tried that, and then the animation goes too fast. So I wanted to slow it down by half. So now I'm cycling from 0 to 7, and when I actually select which sprite I'm going to use, for 0 and 1 I use sprite 0, for 2 and 3 I use sprite 1, for 4 and 5 I use sprite 2, and for 6 and 7 I use sprite 3. So I translate the step by just dividing it by 2. So 0 divided by 2 is 0, 1 divided by 2 is 0, 2 divided by 2 is 1, and so on. So as step goes from 0 to 7, step divided by 2 cycles through 0 to, let me illustrate. I think this is an interesting technique. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So step will cycle through those numbers. But if I divide those numbers by 2, we find that step divided by 2 is just cycling through 0 to 3. And that's how we achieve the animation. Right, so next change. When I actually draw the player. So before we had this ugly line. At the end of drawing the board or the maze, we calculate the position of the player, and we use the very first sprite of 0, 0, and we drew that. But now, let's move it this way. I actually calculate which sprite am I going to use by using the base name plus the direction 0 to 3 plus step divided by 2, so also 0 to 3, plus the dot png. And then I use this p. This is the string, the file name that I use for the sprite. Okay, so that's the animation sequence sorted out. And then I think this is the last change, yes. So let's just go back to the one other change we skipped over. That's the animation. And here, I played around with responsiveness, and I didn't feel 100 is responsive enough. And I know at the start I had 10, and that was too responsive. So I just twiddled around and found that 50 actually works very well. A lot of writing a game is tweaking the parameters so that the game feels right, so that it feels like it's playing right. And sometimes you have to make these kinds of updates. All right. So this is the new, I called the file MazeRunner. It's our final game. The final thing we're writing, and I'm going to close this editor window. Don't save that. And this is MazeRunner. And let's run that, and you'll see the animation cycle. So here we go. There we go. So now as the man moves, he's actually being animated. In fact, we can slow it down even further. Maybe the effect will be clearer. Instead of dividing mod 8, I'll use mod 16. I'm not going to update this, but I have to update this, so this will be divided by 4. So step is going to cycle from 0 to 15, but if I divide that by 4, step divided by 4 cycles from 0 to 3. Okay, let's see if the animation cycle is... Yeah, but now it's too slow. It almost looks like he's not walking. I mean, I see if he walks far, you can actually see it better. Let me just get a stretch where it's he walks quite a distance. Maybe here. Yeah, it's not smooth enough, I think. So the divided by 2 was the right solution. Okay, right. So that's the key sorted out, I think, plus the animation. Now I want a better maze, and I'm going to look for one on the internet quickly. Or maybe I'll just make a new maze of my own. It's easy to do because we have this, we have this file format to that we use for the mazes. Or maybe we should wait with that, because maybe I can use this maze to add the things I want to add. Let's add jewels first. In fact, I'll do that. I'm going to add jewels to this maze format. So what I'll do is I'll decide arbitrarily that if I put a dot in here, that'll represent a jewel. So I put the dot, save maze, but now I have to update my file reading. In fact, let's start at the top. I now have a new item in my maze. That is a jewel. And when I read the maze down here, I have to say if it's a hash, then it's a wall. Else, if the character I read is a dot, that is a jewel. We have to update the drawing. If it's a space, it's a wall. Okay, let's just copy this. If it's a jewel, draw the jewel. Okay, and because the player can move anywhere that's not a wall, this will work. I should encounter a jewel right there. I'm a little worried because there is a wall. There's also a wall there behind the jewel. Why does it draw a wall? You see, if I move on it. Oh, I know why. I know why. Sometimes it draws a wall behind the jewel and sometimes it does not. And why does it not? Because, let's just clear it. At the moment, right in this position, there is actually a wall. And when I move, that wall stays on the canvas and it draws a new maze window over it. So imagine that this is there. I'm now going to move. It's going to draw the updated screen, and it'll actually put the jewel on top of that. So what I forgot to clear the screen before I'm drawing it. Clear, and let's be sure that we want black. Okay, let's try again. It just looked odd. There we go, that looks better. Okay, now I want the player to pick up the jewel when it moves across it. So the player can move through the jewel because it's not a wall. The player can move if there's no wall. So I want the player to pick it up. So what I'm going to say is, if it's not a wall, then we move. And we also pick it up. So I'm going to say here, if that maze, well, we can do it in a separate if. If the maze in the new spot, in Y and X, is a jewel, then maybe I want the player to have some kind of score, but I'm not going to add that now. Score becomes score plus 10. Every jewel scores you 10 points. But I also want to take the jewel out of the game. So I'm going to say that maze spot where the player has moved to just becomes a space. So no more jewel. So if we run, we see the jewel, we pick it up. Maybe we play some kind of sound. Okay, right. So jewels are done. Let's do doors and keys, because I want to do that as well. Maybe I'll have one more episode to show the font. No, I won't. Let's see. Okay, right. I want this to be a little interesting, so let's see where's the first point where I can actually make a choice. Here I can go up or down. So let's say that here there is actually a door. I'll just put a D. You can choose anything you want as long as it's not confusing. And I'll put a key, let's say K, up here. So I'm now adding doors and keys. And I'm going to save that, go back to MazeRunner, go to my read function. Oh no, first go up, 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 up. Here I want to have 3 and 4. 3 will be a key, 4 will be a door. Go down, and let's go to simple. D is actually key. K comes first. Doesn't matter. Key, if it's a D, it's a door. And I want the player to be able to pick up keys just like jewels. So once the player has picked up the key, it's gone from the maze. So I'll just change that into a key. But the player cannot move through doors. So if there's a door, I want that to act basically the same way as a wall. So if the player, wherever the player wants to move, if it's not a wall, and it's not a door, it should not be a wall, and it should not be a door. We can move there. So the player cannot move through doors. Let's just double check that. I'm going to save, going to run. I'm not drawing the doors, I won't see them. I forgot to add them to the drawing. Okay, right, let's just quickly add those. I think I'm going to run out of time. There will be a MazeRunner 6. Door, yeah, key, door, I think closed, that's the name of the icon. So right, I've added keys and doors to the maze file, I'm reading them correctly, I'm displaying them correctly, and now the player will actually be able to pick up the keys. Oops, I think I made a mistake. But we haven't added the fact that the player can actually use the keys to open the doors, and we'll do that next time and get the better maze. So there's a door, can't go through it, but I can pick up that key. It still can't go through the door. Next time we add that. But that's all for now.